Right, good afternoon. We are having a discussion today with some young people, and I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. So we're going to ask them why they say they are atheists, and we're going to ask the question to one of them, why are you a Christian? And I hope you enjoy the discussion because it's a little bit controversial, but it's a question that needs to be answered. So let me introduce you to the guys who are here. So that's Spiwe, that's Nick, and this is Lunga, and I'm John. Okay, so we're going to start with Spiwe, and we're going to ask you, Spiwe, why are you an atheist?
Oh, firstly, I'd like to greet everyone. I'm an atheist because I don't believe there's a God. Because if there's a God, there wouldn't be all these evil things happening around us. Because if God is all-powerful and almighty, God would then remove all these evil things for his people. And if God wanted us to go to heaven, why did he bring us to earth? Those are the type of questions that make me not believe that there's a God. And the experiences I've had, I'm like, there's no God.
Okay, we'll come back to one of those things specifically. Yes, Lunga, why you say you're an atheist?
I agree with Pierre. I think the question of evil, it's many things. To specifically evil, I don't think an omnibenevolent, all good, all loving God would allow his people to go through suffering and pain. And then there's also the question of afterlife. See, is Pierre hit the nail on the head? If there's an afterlife, then what's the point of this life? If God loves us all, then why does he send specific people to hell? It's just, that's kind of why I'm atheist. And then there's also the logical fallacies that come with the definition of God that we have, that Christians have. So it's just many things that boil down to that, yeah.
Okay, again, we're going to come back to some of those. Nick, why are you a Christian?
So, I'm a Christian. I think for me, I've grown up in a Christian home. So, growing up in a Christian home, to become a Christian was almost a natural step. It wasn't something that I thought about very much. I think later on in life, what I've now done is I've begun to realize that the Christian worldview, for me, stands superior to many of the other worldviews, all of the other worldviews that are out there. Although I might not, and I say all very reluctantly because I haven't necessarily studied all of the worldviews that there are. But I think the most common one among atheists, which is naturalism, is something that pales in comparison to what Christianity has to offer on the very same grounds.
Okay, so you need to, for the sake of understanding here, explain naturalism.
Okay, so naturalism is the understanding that there are everything that we see, all physical things that we can see and touch, that our senses could possibly experience, let me put it maybe that way, is plausible and possible. Everything else is something that needs to be explained, I guess. So naturalism is this understanding that all the physical things that we see around us is all there is. There's no supernatural realm, there's no spiritual realm, and there's some of the other things that we can talk about a little bit later, but that's the understanding, I think.
Okay, are you two happy with that definition?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's just go back to you. You saying that you don't really believe because of what you see or understand to be evil.
Yes,
How
sir.
could a good God create evil?
Yes, sir.
And therefore, there is no
God if there's evil. Because if he can remove everything, why doesn't he remove evil? Unless the evil God is as good as or as powerful as the good God.
Okay.
So just a question, can you define what you mean by evil?
Okay. Evil, like people who do bad things, like killing, murdering people, raping people are said to be evil. That's what we are told. That's evil. And we are told the good people help other people out and those type of things.
Can I also just
Yeah, sure.
I think so. In my notes, like I said, in my note, I very briefly defined evil as being morally reprehensive or causing harm. So if anything, to me, if anything causes harm, then it's evil. Because I don't like to get hurt. So if it causes harm or it hurts things, then that.
So just a
thing is
question, just on that then. If I kick my toe and hurt myself, that is evil.
evil. Okay. That's why there's the morally reprehensible. That's why that's the first definition. So obviously if you kick your toe on the table, that isn't really evil, but you don't want that, right? You don't want to, because you feel pain. Exactly.
I don't
so,
want pain. I don't
so I think anything that is morally reprehensible that causes harm, or rather anything that is capable of morality that causes harm, is evil. The
Okay.
table is not capable of morality, so it can't be evil.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question. So what you are doing here is partially dualism. So if a thing is good, there must be something that's bad. Otherwise, you can't define bad. Yeah. If you can only define evil or reprehensible in the context of something that is good and acceptable.
Yeah, that's true.
Morality, where do you get morality from? You see, that you've got to have something to measure what is bad against, and that's good. You've got to be able to measure evil against what is right and just and fair. Now for us, God is the sum total of all that is good and pleasing and acceptable. All the things that you desire, you'll find in God. And the Christian belief says all that is unacceptable, that will hurt and violate people, is found in the devil and his standards. Is there any other way that you can tell me how you call things morally reprehensible if you don't have a standard of what is good?
So can I? Said God is all that's good, what, and then the devil. So there isn't one God, according to what he said. So there's two equal gods that are competing with one another.
Spiwe, you know what you're doing now?
That's
Is
what
it-
he
no,
said.
that's not
You
what I
can't
said.
define bad
No.
if you can't define good.
What you are doing is you're interpreting what I'm saying. I didn't say they're equal. For me as a believer, God is sovereign and supreme. There is no one like him. For us as Christians, there's a very simple thing here. It was God who sent his Son because he loves us. The devil never did that.
And then he took him back. Instead of taking the devil, he took his son, which
No,
he
he
loves,
didn't.
back.
No, he didn't.
What did he do?
If you are born again, Christ comes to live in you. So he never took him anywhere. You have access to him because of his Son. The devil never did that. Yes, Lunga, you got a
He
question.
said, how can we define morality? Is that what you said? How can we define morality?
If you've got nothing
if
to
you
compare
have
it to.
Nothing to compare it to. Okay, so, and I knew this was going to come. So, so this is what I thought of. This is how I thought about it. So, human beings essentially are animals, right? So we are
Yeah,
like
okay.
like lions, like monkeys, like giraffes. We are animals, and so the animal's main goal is to survive, right? So how I reason this is that there's a reason you don't see a lion unnecessarily killing another lion, or a monkey unnecessarily killing another monkey, because within
100%. I agree with you.
within that society, I think those animals know that it's best for their survival if they work
Sure.
together.
I agree.
Right? Same with human beings. That's so. What I'm saying is that we agreed as a society that killing is wrong, or rape is wrong, or
So can I jump in?
Yeah.
Sorry. I think we got the crux of what you're saying. So effectively what you're saying is the lion out of necessity will do certain things.
Yes.
Therefore the human out of necessity can do certain things that justify their actions. Because if the lion can kill another male lion that's imposing on his territory out of necessity, or another young male lion can come and kill an older male lion just because he's getting old,
Okay.
then we find that humans then will have rights and reason to do certain things out of necessity
Yeah.
because it's for the betterment of the herd.
Yeah.
So, for instance, then you would, and I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea, but you would say, though, that all people that rape should be given the death sentence because that would be for the betterment of society. We would say that the mental institutions that are carrying people and loved ones that are not necessarily mentally healthy, because of the betterment of society, we can wipe them out. They don't necessarily need to be around.
I
And
see.
you would say, the other thing that you would say, which is what is being said around abortion, is that because it's a disadvantage to the mother, we can kill the babies.
I see how you come to that conclusion. In a sense, I sort of agree with you. So, Plato, an ancient Greek philosopher, he had a similar idea in his book, The Republic, which I haven't read, by the way, just quickly brushed through. So he says...
You got that off the internet.
I promise you. So, Plato argues that if, like you're saying, if a person is in a mental institution and they're not really right with the mind, or I'll use a person who's just had a stroke, or a person who's terminally ill and there's no real cure for that sickness, they're in the...
Like AIDS.
Let's
Let's
say
say something that's socially
like AIDS.
relevant. Yeah.
So then that person isn't relevant to society. That's what Plato argues. And in a sense, I kind of almost agree with him. Because
Okay.
because
Okay, let me just get
Okay.
back here. We're discussing atheism and Christianity. So now we're on to a whole discussion about all kinds of stuff here. And I get it, but you accept the point that I need a standard of morality against which to evaluate right and wrong and evil.
okay, yes.
Now, I'm just going to chuck something in here for you to think about. So the word atheist is based on two words. Theos, which means God, and atheist means against God. Okay? So, what is interesting about that is that even in the definition of atheism, they accept God. Because otherwise you can't define atheism. So even in the definition of atheism, it means to stand against God or believe that there isn't a God. So by definition, you in fact acknowledge God.
That's only because of the claim that there is a God. See, if there was no claim that there is a God, then there wouldn't be a claim that there isn't a God. So it's not necessarily because by definition we say there is no God, then there's a God.
Okay, so let's say this. If there is no God, as you guys believe, what kind of society would we have?
I think the same one.
You would have the same one.
The same society.
Same society.
How
So,
do you
like,
reason?
How do you get that?
I don't know how to explain this, but let's say there is a God, as you guys believe there is a God. I feel like the Bible and all these Muslim things are just to control people,
yes.
how they behave,
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
so that society behaves in this way, so we can maintain or sustain our lives longer. I don't know.
Okay,
if
can I chuck something in here again for you to think? So communism in its form, in its pure form, denies the existence of God. It's atheistic in its foundation. So what has happened is that the communistic states took over the role of God and started to make the rules. man, by his very nature in denying God, man takes his place and makes the rules. So, for example, China will say you're not allowed to read your Bible. Why are they afraid of God? Were they exercising a claim there to remove the freedom that people could have to believe in a God if they
Or
chose
the
it?
freedom people think they have to believe in God. Because God says He knows everything before it
You
happens.
quoting God now?
No, I'm just
No,
saying.
that's cool. Yeah, that's really
The Bible
good.
says
No, but
the Bible says God knows you before you were born. He knows what you are going to
Sure.
do when you're born and what's going to happen. So He basically knows Longa's going to hell because Longa doesn't believe there's a God already. He knew it before Longa even knew. So Longa doesn't have
The
a
freedom
choice.
to choose.
okay,
you
now we're
talk.
going into the freedom of choice here.
But I want to just
Yo!
step back quickly.
I love it. I love
I
it.
just want to step back quickly. So what Pastor John is saying, and I think what I tend to agree with, if you do an understanding, and an interesting guy named David Belinsky does this. He debates a guy named, I don't know if you know him, Christopher Hitchens. You would probably know him, and they talk about now. David Belinsky is he's an atheist. Well, he's a secularist, but he's not a Christian by any means. He doesn't believe that in God. But he was saying that the thing is, the most interesting thing is, in cultures where they've let go of what we call a Judeo-Christian worldview, where they've let these things go, you see the rise of things like Nazis. You see the rise of the First World War through the Russian Empire and Stalin. You see what China is doing in terms of control and how they want to control their people. So you've got to explain. I just want to go back before we get into freedom of choice. Your statement that said, John, society will be the same. See, because when you take a moral objective standard away, from my perspective, then anything goes. And when you're saying that anything goes, it means that you determine what is right for you. And again, we're all animals. I'm quoting you, I'm giving you more boost here. We're all animals. We're all animals. And if we're all animals, that means that different herds will do different things. And what I mean by that is, lions aren't all doing things for the good of all the lions in all the world. So China will do what's best for China, but even the family that's in China will do what's best for that family. And that individual will end up doing what's best for him. And what will happen is, everybody will do what's right in their own eyes.
And that's going to lead to?
Anarchy, if you're asking me.
It'll lead to chaos.
I don't think it would necessarily stay an anarchy. See, human beings are a very evolved social animal. So, so I think, yes, we're going to, there's individualism, essentially. It's what's best for me, what's best for my family, what's best for my country, right? That's, in a
The way
sense,
I interpret it.
individualism. Individualism. But then that's, so this, what's best for us is not best for them. And so we get to a conflict and we harm each other, right? And then we realize that, okay, clearly there's crossroads and clearly there's conflict and clearly this is harming both parties. So as a collective, let's find a way or a solution that's best for both parties. And I think human beings are capable of doing that and have shown that they're capable of doing that because laws always change.
Yeah, but you're going to have to give me an example where they've actually shown this.
Apartheid, for instance.
Okay. Yeah.
For many years, black people were segregated and we thought this was okay. And apartheid government, they thought that this was okay. But then...
That's conflict, okay?
There was
yeah,
conflict, and then
sure.
there was conflict, and then the external world realized that it wasn't okay, and they told South Africa it's not okay.
Sure.
And then South Africa, along with the two parties in conflict, they realized, okay, this really isn't okay. And then they reformed, and they changed the apartheid rule, and now we can't go back to apartheid, because The law has
100%.
changed. The
So-
law has changed. So
Yeah. I
I
agree
think
with it.
maybe we would descend to anarchy, but wouldn't stay in anarchy. Like you said, the Nazis came and they ruled havoc all over. But then the rest of the world are like, no, we don't like that. Let's try and change that. And so they did.
So just two things in response to that. One, we can very easily, I think, personally slip back into apartheid, just a reverse version of it. And I think it's
Okay.
not impossible.
So let's get back to our discussion.
But I think the other thing is, when we're talking about this, the other rule of thumb here that you have to say is, well, we might find peace, or one government will begin to dominate all other governments through this anarchy, because one will show itself to be the true superpower of all superpowers and subject them to a specific kind of authority. It's not necessarily, I don't think, could work out in just one way, saying, yeah, this is, I think it would, yeah.
Okay,
It's not-
so let's just go back to our discussion because we seem to go, off on a detour here. So let's just go back. You say you guys are atheists. So what is your picture of a perfect society without God? Understanding what these two guys have just said, Spiwe. There is no God. Everybody will do what is right for them.
Yeah.
Everybody will do what is right for their family. Everybody will do what is right for their country. I've yet to see that. But what is your perfect picture of a society without God?
One way I have the control over what I do, and the Bible. Can I go back to the Bible?
No, but you're an atheist, bro.
Isn't you Christian, so you believe in what's in the Bible, so you might get what I want to say better.
Okay,
when
let's
I
hear.
back to the Bible.
Yep.
God knows that Pastor John is going to be a pastor. But now John didn't know that, but it's already said for John that John, you're going to be this. I want a world where I can be anything I want to do.
Even if you don't have the ability.
The ability to
I don't want to be operated on by you.
but if I'm stronger than you. I want this. A world where I'm free to do anything I feel is good for me or my people around me. Because now there's a set of rules that are put in place to benefit other people, not necessarily everyone.
Isn't that going to result in anarchy? So I walk down the street and I say, I don't like you.
I'm sorry.
What I've done is, I've just done something that I wanted to do. He did nothing to me, but I don't like him. He didn't shave this morning, so I smack him. You feel your neighbor is playing his music too loud, so you just get up, you go shoot him. Because there aren't consequences. Because you are playing God. You've done away with God, but you become God.
The other thing that again, you talk about a worldview that you're saying, yeah, okay, we're naturalistic in the way we approach things. All we see is all there is. Okay, the problem is, what underlies this worldview are obviously two things. One is physicalism, which is what we just spoke about, which is everything that we see is what there is. But the other thing is called determinism.
Sure.
It's determinism. You're not in control, no matter which way you look at it. And this is the thing about having a worldview. We've got to go to the extent of that worldview and see what that looks like in its fullest form.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying to you is, you're saying, no, we don't have freedom of the will. I definitely believe we do. And we can talk a little bit about that now. But if you're saying you want a world where there's no God, so you're in complete control, the problem is your worldview tells you, that says, besides that, your worldview tells you that all things, from the beginning, from the Big Bang, through evolution, through everything, has been determined already by science. There is nothing you can do that will change this outcome. You were gonna sit here. Science will prove that to you. Well, a pseudographical kind of science, but it will prove that to you. And it's a scientific determinism that people who are atheists hold to because they can't get away from it. The problem is with this kind of ideal is that if you make a truth claim like there is no God, can you even trust what you're saying?
Contrast. You saying that there is a God is also a truth claim.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
So can you trust what you're saying?
Absolutely, I can. And why I'm saying this is because I do believe in the freedom of the world. And this is the problem. So, and we can talk a little bit about this, but who says, and this is a question, who says that foreknowledge is foredetermination? Who says just because I know that my son, if he walks and does something, I know what he's going to do, I'm making him do it?
That is not omniscient. Can I please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I please just look at my notes? No, because I didn't memorize
That's
this.
Go for it. Go for
I
it.
didn't memorize
cool.
this.
That's cool.
So talking about free will. I have it here. So
I'm going to keep bringing you guys back to God, because here we're going again.
so omniscience, which is
Omniscient, yeah?
all-knowing,
Yeah.
and omnipotence, which is all-powerful.
Yeah.
They are incompatible with free will. This is why, if the will, which is the free will, was caused by God, then the actions of the will would have to be subject to the same laws of causality set in motion by God. So what that means
Yeah,
is
thank you.
if
Explain
the
that to
will
us, sir.
is caused by God, the free will, then everything that the will does is because God made that will that way.
No, so that the problem is, and this is a key thing that you misunderstand about the Christian worldview, is that we are made in the image of God. And one of the things concerning God is his free will. So when we think about it, God making us in his image, God chose to create. God had the freedom to choose and it's not at a specific moment in time because God is beyond time, but God had to choose to create.
Mm-hmm.
And in his decision to create, he created what is called free will.
But that
And you've got to look at it from this perspective. Change it a little bit. Yes, he created. It doesn't mean he set things in motion. It doesn't mean he set things in motion. And you'll see that if you actually read the Genesis account. He created, but he didn't predetermine what they should do. God's whole desire was for them not to fall. And if his whole desire for them was for them not to fall, why would he push them to fall? Now let's just go back quickly though. My understanding of foreknowledge, all knowing, is from a different vantage point. And I'll give you an example of that. If I'm standing on the top of a building and I'm looking at two cars coming down an intersection.
I see where you're going.
I see two cars coming down an intersection and I can see that at this specific point these two cars are going to meet and they're going to collide. The fact that I can see that doesn't mean that I'm making them have an accident. My vantage point is different. Their vantage point is they can't see around the corner, so they're coming, and they can't know.
I want to contrast that.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a chance to respond, and then you very quiet.
I'm going to
So you also got to jump in here on the
prepare.
discussion.
I'm going to contrast that. See, that's not how the Bible views omniscience, though. See, because it says that God knows everything from
The end from the beginning.
the end from the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's not you standing on top of the building knowing that the cars are going to hit. It's you knowing before the car left the garage, it was going to hit. And before that car left the garage, it was going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you knowing the number of stops that car was going to make and the number of stops that car was going to make.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not...
But knowing, again, the problem is knowing is not determining. That's what we've got
But
to...
that's-
if you
and
have
see-
the ability to change it from hitting, why not? If you just loving God.
If you don't want them,
We'll get there
there's now two things I want to say.
We'll
So
get there now.
you say knowing is not determining, but then the thing is, God doesn't just know that they're gonna hit. God made it so that they do hit. And if God,
How did he make it so? You got to explain that. Sorry, I don't know. You've got to get to that.
okay,
point to me.
so when
Follow
God,
your logic here, because I don't see
okay.
it.
When God created me,
He
He
didn't create you. your mother created you, but he knit you together in your mother's womb. But yeah, carry on. Carry on.
When God created me, He knew and created everything about me. He fashioned me down to the last detail. So every single thing I do, it's because God made it that way. So when that car leaves the garage, it leaves turning left because God created it to turn left. It goes to that point because God created it to go to that point. And when it crashes, God created that crash. And if God, like Spirit said, if God is an omnibenevolent being, one that does not want evil, God doesn't want that crash to happen. So why does it happen?
You can't know what God possibly wants.
Guess that's the wild card. That
No,
God works in mysterious ways.
No. Besides that, but besides that, I think besides that, you see, you're talking through things that are probabilities, not facts, and this is the problem. This is the problem with that. So you're saying, okay,
Also,
Yeah,
Christianity is also not a fact. The Bible is also a theory which hasn't been proven.
you again. Now that's a whole other kind of topic, and it's something that we
Okay,
can
I
talk
want
about.
to make a comment about that. I know what I was like in my past. I do know God because somewhere in this journey with me, God intervened just at the right time, and I know what I've become. And that is evidence enough for me. What I was compared to what I am now is not the same thing. You see, you can't speak from that experience because you don't know God. So for you to comment on that is difficult. So my journey was interrupted by God. And what He did is what He said in the Bible. He made me a new person. So if I go back to that whole thing about Adam and Eve and the fall and all of that in the Bible, their relationship was perfect with God. The Bible teaches us that sin entered the world and the fall started. So when I take certain of the laws, the law of entropy, or nothing is improving, it's decaying. It's going backwards. Man is not getting better. Look at society around you. Society is getting worse. Unless God interrupts, and He did. He sent His Son Jesus for us. And then He encourages you in this free fall you're in. He becomes your parachute, capable of saving your life, capable of changing you from the inside out. It's exactly what He did with me. And He promised that in the Bible. So I have a real experience with God. And I know He speaks to me.
But isn't that because of what you
Think.
You
No.
think this is God.
It's
God
what
didn't.
I've experienced, not what I think. I can
wanna-
actually tell you that.
Okay.
I've experienced Him, not only heard Him. And that happens on a daily basis. That I'm changing so that my relationship ultimately is restored in Him and with Him to what it used to be.
A couple of things on the contrast of that, but you wanted to say something, so I want to make
I
it.
lost my train of thought. Go for it.
Okay, so you say who you were before isn't who you are after God intervenes, right?
100%.
Okay. See, the problem with that is that I, as a person, have also facilitated growth. So who I am today isn't the same person I was in 2018, isn't the same person I was in 2019. So can I then say, because I'm not the same person in 2019 or in 2018, has God then entered my life? Or can I not just say, it's just I've grown as a person? My worldview, my life philosophy, my perspective, all of it has just changed. That's all because the only constant thing on earth is change. We're always going to change. So who I am today, or who I am after I leave this discussion, isn't going to be who I am when I came in. because I've changed. We're always going to experience
hope so.
change. So,
I get what you say. I get what you say. The difference here is change for the better or is change for the worse?
okay.
The laws of the world. If I leave this room empty and don't come back into this room for 20 years, is it going to be better or worse?
I think
Depends on who gets
No,
it.
no. Nobody comes in here.
I want to answer that question. Actually.
Is there going to be dust or no dust?
There is going to be dust.
So it's not going to be as clean as it was.
Yes, sir.
Because the whole issue is that things are not getting better but worse. And that is because of sin. But can I ask you another question? Let's get back to God here. Okay, and then I'm going to ask you guys a question. Okay, and you're going to better ask one of the guys to answer it for you. Cool. So, if you don't believe there's a God, you obviously do not believe that there's something like everlasting death or everlasting life.
Yeah.
When you die, you die.
Yes.
Okay. That's very interesting. So, you guys, as young men in this society, are then going to tell your grandparents and all your forefathers and ancestors and whatever that all they've done all their lives is they believed in something that doesn't exist.
They believed in what?
Right? So you are going to tell all the major religions in the world that there is no life after death.
Yeah.
So they must all be wrong and you must be right.
Unless they prove me otherwise.
Exactly. The burden of proof does not lie in the person. I want to speak about the burden of proof. Yes, the burden of proof doesn't lie in the person who's trying to disprove the claim. It lies in the person who's making the claim. I can say.
Hold on.
Okay.
But you making a claim.
No.
My claim is there is a God. Your claim is there is no God. Your claim is just as important as mine. Your claim is there is no God. Your claim isn't I don't believe in the Christian God. Your claim is there is no God. Therefore, the burden of proof has to rest with you as much as it has to rest with me.
See, I've only said that there isn't a God because you claim that there is. Which is why I'm saying, if I...
That's not what you said when you said you're an atheist because, and you're an atheist because. That's not what you said.
I'm saying, because you define that atheist, there is no God, right?
I didn't. You guys define what you believe.
That's what we opened with, though. That's what we opened with. You said that even in the atheist definition there is a God. And I said there's only a God in the atheist definition because of the claim that there is a God, right? And which is why I'm saying that the burden of proof doesn't lie in the atheist, but the theist who's claiming that there's a God. Because if I claim that there is a fully functional civilization on one of the moons on Saturn, it is my job to prove that claim. It is not Spirit's job to say, no, you're wrong.
No, wait, hold on. There is, you see, the thing is, and this is the thing, when I look at the negative of what you've just said, he will say, no, you're not. But he can't just say, no, you're not, and keep quiet. Because he's made a counter claim.
Okay.
He's got to say, no, you're not, and he's got to give facts to why. Why does he say you're not?
Which is, okay, in which case, I then go to the logical framework that how do I say it? Then if you're saying that there is a God, you're telling me what that God is, and then I then take that definition and dissect that definition. If that definition cannot logically exist, then I can conclude that there is no God.
But your points again, and this is the thing, you're saying logic, as if logic stands sits in the seat of judgment and says, well, by logic we can determine all things. The problem with that is you get different kinds of logic. You get an Eastern kind of philosophy and logic that is established within this world, and you get a Western kind of philosophy and logic that is established within this world. We hold to a Western logic, which you get the law of non-contradiction, etc., etc., etc. You get an Eastern kind of logic that says, well, anything really goes as long as it makes you happy. Now, if I listen to you guys, your logic in dissecting God rests in the Western side. But your logic in accepting atheism rests in the Eastern side. As long as it makes me happy, or as long as I can do what I want in society, then I'm okay. And that's what you want out of it. So you're now taking two kinds of philosophies and you're putting them together to make some sort of, I don't know, claim, but you're mixing these two things up. So if you're using Western logic to disprove God, you've got to use Western logic to prove your point. That in society, yes, okay, cool, you're saying there is no God, fine, but then you've got to explain why a society that will do what I want, which is Eastern philosophy, and what I believe is right, and as long as it makes me happy, you've got to put that into this Western understanding and say, well, that will make sense here, and then use the same tools you've used against Christianity against that.
Which is
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hear some of these guys ask a question. Who do you want to ask?
Both of them.
Who's both of them?
Spiwe and Lunga.
Lunga and Spiwe. Yeah.
So my question is, you guys say that when you die,
Okay,
die.
can you stand just so that...
And come,
They can
maybe
get-
come pop your head in here, because the mic
Okay.
needs to pick you up.
Okay. So my question is, you guys are saying that when you die, you die. But you abide by the laws of this world. So that if someone rapes somebody, then they should go to jail. Or they should face the consequences. Am I right?
Yeah.
And what about the rapists who aren't caught? And the murderers who go free? And the people who commit a sin every day but are never brought to justice according to the laws of this world?
See, that's when I... Ultimately, I think, because I have a sort of nihilistic view, for those who aren't aware, nihilism is that life has no meaning, inherent meaning. So, see, I take it and I sort of mold it differently. You say, what about the people who rape and are not caught? I say, then they just die.
But you're
Then they
Okay.
just die, because ultimately, I think it almost doesn't matter, if I can say that. I don't know, because if I kill Pastor John and I'm not caught,
I tell you,
if I kill Pastor John and I'm not caught, then I die. If Spiwe kills Mr. Stock and
so
he is
you guys are
caught,
just killing Christians,
then-
is that
so if Spiwe kills Mr. Stock and he is caught, then he just dies. We all
just
come
die.
to the
Eventually
same point. We
Okay.
just die.
So then that
Okay, your last question, then we're going to see if
Yes.
there's somebody else.
So then that contradicts your idea of everyone being ruled by the same thing. No, because now if you're saying, okay, there's China and there's America, and both of them have their own ways of ruling their people, right? But then they come into conflict together, and they say that we all need to rule everyone the same way, but they aren't able to agree. So they decide that they're just going to kill everybody. And because they have your mentality, that if they kill, they just die. There's no
See,
consequence.
no.
Then what?
No. See, I think you've misunderstood. What I said is that as a collective, we find the least harmful way of living that brings about the best survival. So, yes, those
In
rapists...
other words, you're going to deny your own freedom for the sake of the community.
I think that brings that's in terms of individualism, which we'll get to. So I'm saying, I've said
Okay,
that
quick
we're-
answer because I want to ask another
I said
question. We
we're-
know.
as a collective, we come to a solution that comes with least harm for everybody, right?
So what is your measure of that?
So listen, wait. So yes, the rapist still escapes, but the fact is we are looking for the rapist. We don't let them escape.
But you see-
that's
Okay,
why they
okay.
get caught.
But we got to just come back. Sorry, just before we ask a question. Sorry, Pastor John. To what end? To what end?
He did what he thought was right.
To what end? Lunga, you got to explain to me, to what end are we catching this dude? If there's no point, to what end if life has no intrinsic value, to what end are we doing anything? So why?
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's go. Anybody else? Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Stand up.
So I wanted to ask a question.
Who do you want to ask?
Christians.
Okay.
I wanted to find out whether. Oh, firstly, I wanted to comment on what you said about how if there is no God and there was no religion and whatnot, at some point humans would realize that killing, raping, and all of this is not beneficial to them, as this could end up with mass extinction of the whole species.
Exactly.
As animals, as every animal, it's proven that every animal seeks to survive as to pass on their generation, to pass on, to continue living, right? And so at some point we realize that this killing is not
good.
It's going to result in us being a diminished species, which will lead to our power diminishing and would end up in a situation where we could not survive. And then
Can we respond to that quickly? Yeah.
So I've got a simple response to that. Mankind has pushed the self-destruct button. Things are not getting better, they're getting worse. Hear me?
how so?
In the 60s, with the Cold War between Russia and America, there was this massive arms race to arm themselves with nuclear power. You know that self-destruct was just a button away. And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Except we now have other powers, like North Korea, like the Russian, like the Chinese, that all have the same capability. Countries in the East have the same capability. If one person pushes the wrong button, the world will self-destruct.
Yeah, but
See that one person hasn't pushed the button because they know if they do, then the world or human beings will become extinct. And that's what human beings don't want.
you see, on Lunga's point, the arms race was a cold war. There was none of this nuclear.
No, the Cold War defined the relationship between the two.
Yes, but there was an arms race in that war. There was, after the Hiroshima bombing, there was no
that
conflict
ended the
as
Second
nuclear.
World War. Yeah.
There was no conflict which used nuclear weapons because they realized that this would end up harming us in the future because it destroys our resources. What do we end up living on?
Exactly.
So I think. Let me say two things. I think first you put way too much faith in humanity, and history will prove that one race. Let's talk Nazis. Let's talk apartheid. Let's talk. We can go back. Let's talk about China. Let's stick it within South Africa. How the Zulus had killed Xhosas and Sothos and how they want to dominate. You put way too much faith, I think, in humanity because it takes one man to lead a nation like Hitler. That's nuts. And if he's got the right kind of words and the right kind of things that he can say, he can drive that nation to world war. And understand, World War II ended with nuclear bombs. But you put one person that's crazy enough, and now we talk about the guys in North Korea. You put one person crazy enough, that's able to just push a button. I would never put that much faith in humanity. I would never say that humanity is able to.
Okay, if you're going to keep it short, because I know they're telling us that time's up.
It's not really sure. It's just something I want to. It's just something I want to construct with everything that has been said. So you, I wanna. It's about the cause meeting. It's about this.
Go for it.
This,
It's a
this
conclusion.
evil.
Let's get a
It's
conclusion.
just
Let's get
It's
a
about
conclusion,
these
bro.
cars meeting.
just everything. See, the thing is, you believe in an omnibenevolent God who and omnibenevolence by definition means that you are incapable of doing evil and you only want to see good in the world. So, if I am a God who knows everything and wants all things good to happen, only good things to happen, then I would foresee that man who is going to push that button and turn the world into anarchy, and I would then prevent that to happen. So if these things are happening, it's either I don't know everything or that I'm not all good.
So,
Okay, but can I quickly ask? Okay, sorry to add another question. I wanted to ask, as Christians, Christians believe that God interferes in their lives, right? They believe that.
well, I wouldn't say interferes, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but contributes to their lives, and you believe that you believe that God speaks to you. Why does God not show Himself to everyone so that everyone can believe and
Exactly.
be moved by
Exactly.
the power
The
of seeing
answer
God,
to
so that
that is really
everybody
simple.
It is
can
simple.
go to heaven, right? And if God is all-knowing, how then did He know that? How did He not know that when I created Adam and Eve, Eve would eat the plant and sin would enter the world? How did He not know that?
So you
during
asked
the
about
times-
5 questions already. You haven't given us a chance to answer any of it.
No,
I think
We're
that-
going to have another discussion, so I think it's
So,
we'll get to all of these things. There's too much to discuss in an hour, but let Pastor John answer your question, and then we can.
I just want to say this, in terms of God and the issue of free will and all of that, I don't want, and God doesn't want, somebody to worship Him who doesn't want to worship Him. He wants people who want to spontaneously, because of their relationship with Him, worship Him. So it's not an orchestrated thing. When you choose
So then
God,
He's not all knowing and
oh, wait now. When you choose God, you invite Him to intervene in your life. You invite Him to do that. So I accept Him as my Savior and my Lord, and I want Him to rule my life because I realize something, that He is more capable and able than I am.
Yeah, but
No, you see, otherwise you're going to ask another 5 questions. So,
I'm not asking a question. I'm commenting on what.
no, we're not going to comment now. We're going to have another discussion.
We will.
But I do want to say this, that the Bible for me is quite simple. It says that God has written His laws on the tablets of your heart. Everybody here. Whether you're a believer or you're not a believer. So a cannibal is not going to eat another cannibal. He'll eat somebody from another tribe, but he ain't going to eat his father. Because the laws have been written on the tablets of his heart that says, do not murder.
I want to disagree.
Wait now.
with that.
And those 10 commandments, God took and summarized in 2. Because we were too deaf to understand 10. So He gave us just 2. And if we do that, we'll have a society that's ordered and organized, and we will have a mutual respect for each other. And those 2 laws are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That means that my intent seeks your good, and your intent seeks my benefit. So together we serve each other for the common good. And that is centered in God, not in an atheistic belief,
I wanna.
where I have the freedom to decide for myself.
This is real
Cool. So,
Please
thank
wait.
you for the discussion.
This is itching. This is
Whoa.
This is
So wave goodbye, Lunga. Until next time.
Until next time, guys. But this is.
Wave goodbye. There we are.
Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.